session to order, 6 o'clock. Invocation given by Mr. Kimber. Pledge of allegiance given by Mr. Biden.
Almighty God, we give you thanks and praise for your great goodness towards us. We ask you to be with the mayor and council this evening as they go about public business. Lead, guide, and direct them in all that they do. These things we ask in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kimber, you do a roll call vote.
Mr. Gary Stewart.
Here.
Mr. Patrick Stewart. Mr. Ashford. Mr. Mashford.
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Here.
Mr. President Pro Tem, you have appointed and conduct business.
Thank you. First item on the work session tonight is the Raymond James update. Mr. Green.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. As some of you are aware, their interest rates are very low. There is an opportunity for the city to refinance 3 outstanding series of bonds. However, they need to be done in 2 separate phases. 2 of the refundings can be done this year, and then the last refunding can be done at the beginning of next year. And the reason for that is earlier this year, the city borrowed some funds for capital improvements, and at that time, the city told the bond market that it would only issue $10 million or less in this calendar year. And so in order to fulfill that promise, we can only do the refunding for Series 2009 and 2010 RZs. That can be found on page 17. So just a really high-level summary here. If you'll follow along on the table on page 17, the savings can be realized 2 ways. One way can be a reduction in debt service each year, and the other way can be by receiving a check at closing. So we call that cash at closing, and it would have to be used for capital projects, and your debt service would stay the same in that scenario. So if you look on page 17 and 18, page 18 shows you the reduction in debt service if you decided to go that route. On the very far right, you can see that there's $362,000 in savings. It's in the blue column. The title of the column is Combined Savings. And then if you decided to take cash, to flip back to page 17, if you look at the total estimated present value savings, and just take your finger across that column, the total cash would be $300,000. So that's the amount that would be available for capital improvements, assuming interest rates as of the end of August. So that's going to move around until we get to actually sell the bonds. But if this is something that the city wants to pursue, we would ask that you allow us to start on some of the documentation, and then we'll come back to you once we are ready to sell bonds and finalize the rates. And so the third refunding is on page 19. This is the other RZ issue, and RZ stands for Recovery Zone Economic Development. So in 2010, President Obama implemented a program to try and stimulate the economy. And that's how the access road on Highway 72 was done, and some of the park improvements around town were done with that money. And the government pays 45% of that interest, which is kind of hard to believe that rates have fallen so much that we can refund a transaction like that for savings. So The true interest cost, just to give you an idea on this refunding, is 2.63%. That's for 22 years fixed rate, which is just unbelievable. But this transaction would produce $385,000 of savings. So when you combine the 3 refundings, it would generate $685,000. That's after we've just assumed, generic cost of issuance. But I'm here to answer questions. Something that I think is important, and a lot of issuers are refunding these subsidy bonds because the government has actually cut that subsidy each year since the bonds were issued. So a lot of folks kind of think, well, if the government can't get their act together, the federal government, and deal with the debt limit issues, they're going to continue to cut the subsidy. So the cost of the city is going to be, it could be greater down the road. We don't know, but we know that right now, if the subsidy is what it is today for the remainder of the bond issue, there are interest rate savings. So, there's one other thing that I think is important too. There's a loose sheet that I handed out to everybody, and this is one of the pages from the last bond issue. And this shows what the city's debt limit is. The city can only borrow debt up to 20% of the assessed value of all the taxable property within the city. And one of the issues that was done, the 2010 BRZ issue that we'll refund in January, was done under an Economic Development Act that exempted that from the city's debt limit. There is differing opinions on what qualifies for economic development. The city's current bond counsel firm believes that that is not a viable use under the state act that put that into effect. And so this issue, the 2010 BRZ, so the principal amount is $6,050,000. That amount will go against the city's debt limit, and it has not in the past. So as of the last issue, so fiscal year 2018, the city had $13.7 million of available debt margin. So that's how much we issue under state statute. If this issue is done under the city's debt limit, you'll knock $6 million off of there. So we feel that still leaves the city in good enough shape to where, if you had any emergencies down the road, you could still borrow for whatever you needed. Additionally, over the next 5 years, there's a significant amount of debt that will be paid off. And so that margin will continue to rise every year if the city doesn't issue debt. So that's kind of all I have, and I'm here to answer questions.
The $685,000, Brad, will that, our payment stays the same on the bond payment, right?
That's
Mr.
correct.
Scanlon?
Yes, sir.
And you're projecting an interest rate of 2.6 on the first reimbursement,
That's correct.
based on the trending, I guess, the way.
Current interest rates.
When is the Fed meeting in Brent?
I think they meet next week.
Is it conceivable or even likely that interest rates will go down?
Absolutely. That's kind of the consensus right now is that they could decrease the Fed funds rate in September of this month. And if they don't do it this month, they are likely to do it in December is what the experts are predicting.
So the 2.6 could actually be 2.5.
Sure. Yep. It could be 2.6, it could be 2.4, it could be 2.8, I don't know, but One thing too is if the rates go to where this is not feasible, there are no fees incurred by the city. You know, only fees are paid at the closing of the transaction, so. And as you guys know, I think it's important to mention as well, you know, the city has a very good credit rating. We just went through the process with Rick and the mayor on reinstating, or not reinstating, but updating them on the current finances and the economy and what's going on in Scottsboro. So this should be a fairly easy and quick process since we just talked to them. So.
And if the city did this, this would eliminate any potential downside on the RZ funding from the feds.
That's correct. Yeah.
And the reimbursement, as you said, it wasn't, I think they were picking up 45% of the interest, and that is trending down, correct?
Yeah, I think the subsidy, the sequestration rate, which is the rate that they cut the subsidy for 2018, was 6.8%. For 2019, it is 5.9%. So it has gotten a little bit better, but I think it's been as bad as mid-sevens, and this is kind of the best it's been. But that's a risk you gotta be willing to take if you want to continue going down that road.
I know you're giving us all this information, but this is something you recommend, correct?
Correct. The kind of the benchmark that the industry looks at in this kind of thing with the refinancing is the percentage that's listed under total estimated percent present value savings. So if you divide the present value savings divided by the amount of bonds that you're refunding, if that is 3% or greater, it's something that the market recommends you to start looking at it. Each of these refundings, the 2009 A is 4.8%, 2010 is 6%. So you're almost double what the lowest benchmark is, and then the third refunding is close to 6% as well. So it would be our recommendation to refinance the bonds and save some money.
Any other questions? Let's put that on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is discuss the recycling program, give an update. Maybe you want to do that?
I can, as you know, we started back on the Monday garbage route, picking up some recycling. Did have some participants. We've had a lot of bags distributed. What we picked up today was, we know will increase over time. Just glad that's started back. I can't announce yet that we've received a recycling grant, so I won't discuss that yet. But we're excited about what we will be able to announce in the near future. Just glad everything's moving forward.
Any more questions? Any more questions? Next is discuss public transportation resolution. I guess that'd be you,
Each year we enter this resolution. It deals really with the rural transportation program, and we're required to do an annual resolution, and the city's match is $45,200, and this is a program that goes through TARCOG.
Any more questions?
Is this the same amount as last year?
I think it is. It's a little bit increased. Last year was what? Not
Oh,
much.
it's $6,800.
I was gonna say, it's less than 10%.
This is one of those things that's been done for the last
Yeah.
25, 30 years.
Any more discussion? let's discuss the airport resolution.
This again is an annual resolution where council signs off, and our aviation engineering group, Barge, allows us to apply for airport improvement funds. It's an annual resolution.
Any questions? If not, Gordon had done on this. Number 5, discuss the drone at the landfill. I guess that's you too, man.
As you know, when we had our solid waste authority meeting, we talked about several pieces of equipment, and this is one that we as a group discussed quite a bit at that meeting, and it's the purchase of a drone and the software to be used at the landfill that allows us to measure our airspace and check on our compaction. Make sure we get the proper compaction, and compaction relates to airspace and how much landfill space, field space you have. And so we had recommended or asked to approve this. It's the drone and the components that go with it, $7,500, and then there's they're going to provide on-site training, and then it's $12,000 a year for the software licensure. It's a total of $19,500.
And that would come out of sanitation.
We proposed it to come out of sales tax.
Sales tax. Now, that will be compatible with what CDG does, right?
Yes. It'll allow us to compare data with theirs. Yes. It's I'm sorry.
No.
I was just going to say it's the same software that most landfills use, and came highly recommended from Huntsville Solid Waste Authority.
Any more questions? We'll give reports at the end of the council meeting. It's up next, give us about 5 minutes. Council meeting Monday, September 9th at 6 o'clock. We will dispense with the formalities. Mrs. Phillips, you do a roll call vote.
Mr. Richard Bailey.
Here.
Mr. Gary Stewart.
Here.
Mr. Greg Meisner.
Here. I need a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
Make a motion.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. I entertain a motion to approve the previous minutes, August 26, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. In order of old business, there is none. We'll get to new business. So, time and place for a public hearing, alcohol license for Susan Webb doing business as Jackson Events LLC. Now is the time for a public hearing. Is there anyone here for this? Is there anyone here against this? We will close the public hearing. Ms. Phillips, you want to do the investigative reports?
The applicant is Susan Webb, legal business name Jackson Events LLC, type of license, special events retail, 7 days or less. This will be for the barbecue cook-off event held, the location is the parking lot adjacent to the Comax building located at 134 East Peachtree and also 132 East Peachtree. There were no objections in businesses or residents surveyed. Nearest church and school footage requirements are met. The license application is in order. Health, fire, and building inspections comply, and zoning verification complies.
Do I have a motion granting this alcohol license to Susan Webb?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Next item is authorize Raymond James to proceed with bond refund. Entertain a motion to approve this.
I make that motion.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Next item is resolution for, it's public transportation for 2019, the annual appropriation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Is there any discussion? Next item is airport resolution. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. And then the last item for business is budget amendment for the drone at the landfill. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second? Item dies due to lack of motion. Go to the courts. Delegations. Mr. Moore.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it in such a short order. A couple things I wanted to ask you about here that I noticed that kind of stood out to me on this agenda, and since there's been no period of public comment except for right now. And one of those areas was the discussed drone at landfill, so that didn't pass, so that's a dead issue, right? And what I was going to question about that is the $19.5 thousand total amount. And I think maybe you should do some shopping on that. My suggestion. All right. The other thing was the Raymond James situation. There was a statement that was made, a risk you want to take, question. So this citizen's up here asking y'all exactly what is the risk that you want to take. Whenever you include risk in that, and of course I understand and I follow the financial dealings within the United States, there's a decrease in interest rates that's ongoing. I can appreciate that. But I'm curious about the risk on this total amount that's stated here, in which I understand is $685,000 was the total amount. So I'm just not, this citizen's not comfortable with exactly what the risk is here. Since risk was mentioned in this and y'all have just taken a vote and have approved it. There's been no explanation.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Morgan.
Sure.
What they have approved is for Raymond James to begin the process of coming up with a proposal to the council, which will come back to the council and have to be approved to do the initial paperwork that's tied in to these three refundings. Risk, in my opinion, is interest rates can go up, as Mr. Green said. Interest rates can go down, as Mr. Green said. The Fed is going to be meeting in the next 2 months several times. Interest rates can go up, interest rates can go down. All of the experts seem to be indicating that the interest rates will go down from current rates, which would be 2.61 for us, down to 2.5, 2.4. Could go up to 2.8. Fed could do things irrationally. But when you have sovereign national funds like the German National Fund and the Danish National Fund, their own interest rates being below zero, being negative right now, those people are shopping in the United States. So, but that's a risk. It's also a risk when you're dealing with the RZAs as to whether or not the federal government is going to keep its word. Their word was in 2008, 2009, that they would pay 45% of the debt. They ain't going to keep it. So we run a risk. Are we going to continue to rely on the federal government being truthful to us? Or are we going to look at past practices these last years and take the risk of getting them out of our business? Those are the risks that I think Mr. Renner was talking about, and were also the risks that I was talking about.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate the explanation. Just something I heard, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak and ask the question. Thank you. And by the way, just one other thing. Think about that drone. That drone cost at the landfill area. You might be able to get a better deal than that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Only thing I've got to report is they have set the storm shelter in place at the second site. That work will continue with utilities and everything later this week, but that's moving along quite well. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
I was going to ask about parks while the mayor's saying that. It looks like it's going well, but we're still running ahead of schedule.
Well, they backfilled and it's going well, yes.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate everybody coming. Thank you. Thank you again, Mayor. Appreciate you.
Mr. Stewart?
No, I don't have anything tonight. Thank you all for coming.
All I've got, I talked with Chief Dahl at length about the Cecil Street being made a truck route now, and the side streets off of it. He's going to update us this coming week, and he's contacted all the trucking companies, so that's in the process now of getting all that straightened out, and hopefully it's going to get better sooner rather than later. But just want to give everyone an update on that, and thank everyone for coming out.
Hey, while you're talking about that, I've been working with Chief Dahl on that, and one of the companies have sent out letters or sent out notices to their trucks saying these are the routes you take. So hopefully that keeps them out of our residential areas.
And we'll address that more when Parks gets opened up. We'll revisit that and take a harder look at it then on the traffic issue. Well, that's all I've got. I need a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.